materials. This is lecture 1 and this is in English. Why I have written in English? Because I'll also be teaching all the subjects in Hindi to the students who are comfortable in Hindi. So for the students who are comfortable in Hindi, for them there is altogether different lecture. And the email ID to which you have to send your details, or if you have any query regarding this online coaching, you can send your concerns on this email ID. So whether it is for registration purpose or any other query, you can send the email on this mail ID, and we will respond you within 3 hours of receiving your mail. And the most important thing is, the earlier you start preparing, the better the chances of scoring high marks. So with this, I begin the first topic of mechanics of materials subject, stress and strain. Now, these things you have studied many times, or you find these stress and strain very simple. But as I said earlier, that GATE exam is an aptitude based exam. So they can ask you even the simplest of the things. So you can't ignore anything. Whatever is written in the syllabus, you must know those topics in detail. Okay. Now with this, I begin the lecture, stress and strain. So what is stress? And one more thing I want you to note down, that I have prepared these notes myself. So whatever is written in these slides, in these notes, you have to read each and everything. Please don't leave anything, because already I have left out the unwanted text that is mentioned in the textbooks. So these notes are up to the point. So please study each and every line seriously, sincerely. Now, what is stress? The force of resistance offered by a body against the deformation. It's called stress. See this figure? Load P is being applied on this body. So suppose we are giving a tensile force. This is a tensile force. So body will deform because of the application of this load. And when the body deforms, there will be a force of resistance offered by the body against this deformation. And this deformation is this force of resistance that is offered by the body against the deformation is called stress. The external load acting on the body is called load. This P is load. And the force of resistance offered by a body against the deformation is called stress. So stress is measured as force per unit area. Okay. The load is applied on the body. This you have to keep in mind. The load is applied on the body. See, P, this load is being applied on the body, while stress is induced in the material of the body. Because of this load, stress is induced in the body. Okay. So load is applied and stress is induced. Now, by definition, intensity of stress, or simply stress, sigma, is given by load, applied load P upon area of cross section. Okay. Now, when we talk about stress, when we apply load, so stresses are induced, and at the same time, body is under strain. That is due to the application of load, there will be a change in length of the body depending upon the type of load, that is whether load is tensile or compressive. So the ratio of the change in length dl, change in length, to the original length L of the member is called strain. So strain is change in length upon original length. Suppose original length is L, and when any load is applied, so after the application of load, the length changes by dl. So strain E is change in length dl upon L. Now, this was the general definition of strain, change in length upon original length. But if we talk about tensile strain, in case of tensile load, there will be an increase in length of the member. So tensile strain is increase in length upon original length. Okay. And see, in this figure B and C, this B and C, these are the free body diagram of the original A member. So we see that there is a resistance. So this resistance we are talking about, this is the load and resistance is in opposite direction. So the force of resistance offered by a body against the deformation is called stress. So this XX section, XX, this XX section, we have a resistance due to this applied load. But when we talk for the entire member as a whole, this R here and R here, they will cancel out. So that is why we see this type of behavior. Now, so you have to keep in mind that we talk about stress at any cross section, be it here or this one. So at a particular cross section, that is why we say area of cross section here. Okay. Next. Just a minute. Okay. Now erase it first. Otherwise, it will create problem in next slides. So you need to understand these things clearly. If you have any query during the lectures, when I'll be taking the class live, at that time, after the lecture is finished, I'll give you time to raise your doubts and I'll clear each and every doubt. Because if you are having doubt and that is not cleared, then there will be a confusion. And because of that confusion, you may not be able to do the questions as efficiently as you will be able to do without any confusion. So I'll try to clear all your confusions in the best possible way. Now this was tensile force. Next we come to compressive stress. See, here we have compressive force. That is, this force is pushing the body. Tensile force was pulling the body. This force is pushing the body. So again, there will be a resistance in direction opposite to the applied load P. Applied load is in this direction. Resistance offered is in this direction. So again, resistance will be opposite to the applied load. Similarly for this member, second part of this member. We are considering this section, XX cross section. So again, this is compressive force. So compressive stress is again compressive load upon area of cross section. Compressive strain is decrease in length upon original length. In case of compressive load, there will be a decrease in length. So compressive strain is decrease in length upon original length. Now, apart from tensile and compressive stress, we have shear stress. So this load, when load P is applied parallel to the surface, okay, as you can see here, this load P is being applied parallel to this surface, here also, this surface. So this is called shearing load. And in this case also, there will be a stress and strain developed in the body. So what will be the shear stress? P, this applied load, shear load upon cross-sectional area, this L and into L, this. So this will be shear stress. And shear strain will be transverse displacement upon distance from the lower face. Transverse displacement means this body is fixed here, and when shear load is applied on the top face, this block, because it is fixed here, it will move to final position like this, this final position like this. So there is a deformation, and this is transverse displacement. Okay, shear strain is, so shear strain will be transverse displacement upon distance from the lower face, distance from the lower face. Now, this displacement is by the angle phi. So if phi is small, tan phi equal to phi, which is equal to dl by l. dl is this displacement in this direction, and l was the original position. So dl by l. This will be shear strain. These things will become more clear when we study shear stress in details in coming chapters. Rather, I would say coming topics of this mechanics of materials subject. Shear stress will become more and more clear at that time. At present, we need to focus only on compressive stress and tensile stress. These are the two stresses of focus right now. Shear stress will become more clear when we study torsion or shear energy and bending moment diagrams, all those topics. So at that time, shear stress will become more clear. Now, see what I told you, that you have to study each and every topic that is mentioned in the syllabus, because question can be asked. Simplest of questions can be asked. This question was asked in GATE 2013. A rod of length L having uniform cross-sectional area A is subjected to a tensile force P, as shown in the figure below. If the Young's modulus of the material varies linearly from E1 to E2 along the length of the rod, the normal stress developed at the section SS is this section. So you have to find the answer. I'm not going to tell the answer right now for any of the questions that I will discuss. I'm not going to tell the answers right now. Once you register for the course, at that time, I'll discuss these things again. There will be practice questions based on this stress and strain topic. So at that time, I'll discuss the answers, and I'll explain you the concepts, why this particular answer is valid. So for this question, but this question is simple. Whatever I taught you in previous slide, based on that, you can easily answer this question. Okay. What is elastic limit? When a material is loaded, means when a load is applied on a material such that the intensity of stress is within a certain limit, elastic limit. Don't worry, I'm going to explain this through a figure in the next slide. So right, right now you just listen to what I'm saying or what is written here. When a material is loaded, that is when a load is applied on the material such that the intensity of stress that is induced is within a certain limit called elastic limit. The ratio of intensity of stress to the corresponding strain is a constant which is characteristic of that material. Means the intensity of stress to the corresponding strain is a constant, and this behavior is a characteristic of a material. Means according to the material this will vary. Means what will be the value of stress and what will be the value of strain. The ratio will remain the same, but what will be the value of stress and strain, that will vary depending upon the material. So intensity of stress to the corresponding strain is a constant, and this property is characteristic of that material. And this is known as Hooke's law. So remember one thing, Hooke's law is applicable only within a certain limit called elastic limit. Hooke's law is applicable only up to elastic limit. Once the material is deformed beyond elastic limit, Hooke's law is not valid. The analysis procedure accepting Hooke's law is known as linear analysis. This I'll explain in the figure in the next slide. Means analysis procedure is linear. That is, Hooke's law shows the linear behavior on stress versus strain diagram. So the linear portion of the stress versus strain diagram is obeys the Hooke's law, and the design procedure is known as working stress method. So this is the design procedure, means how we design a material and on what basis we say that Hooke's law is applicable or not, is known as working stress method. In case of axial loading, that is tensile or compressive along the axis, if it is an axial loading, the ratio of intensity of tensile or compressive stress, because stress can be tensile or compressive. So the ratio of tensile stress or compressive stress to the corresponding strain is constant. And what this constant is called, you must have heard of it, Young's modulus of elasticity, or simply modulus of elasticity. So what I meant, E, ratio of intensity of stress, sigma, to the corresponding strain, E, is constant. Sigma by E is constant. And what is that constant? That constant is Young's modulus of elasticity, or modulus of elasticity. Structural steels. These steels which are used for building structures are very stiff and have high values of Young's modulus, while flexible materials have low values of Young's modulus. Okay, so stiffer the material, higher the value of Young's modulus. Okay, as the stiffness decreases, the value of Young's modulus will also decrease. Now, in case of shear loading, within a certain limit, the ratio of shear stress to the corresponding shear strain is constant. Again, shear stress to the shear strain is constant. And what is this constant? This is called shear modulus or modulus of rigidity. denoted by C or G. So for shear, it is shear modulus, and for axial or compressive loading, it is Young's modulus. C. Stress versus strain behavior for materials in tension. These are different properties because stress strain behavior of a material will vary as per the applied load, whether it is the applied load is tensile or compressive. So first we'll study the behavior in tension. This stress versus strain diagram, figure 5, is for mild steel. Okay, this is the standard shape of tensile testing specimen. This is the standard shape. It is bound. If you are willing to perform a tensile test, then the shape of the specimen is to be like this. Okay. Now we see that there are two lengths, L1 and L2. L1 and L2. So L1 is the gauge length. That is the length of specimen that we are going to study for tensile behavior. This length, or rather I would say this one, between these 2 points, this length. So this is gauge length, because based on this L1, this figure is drawn based on the nature of L1. This stress versus strain diagram, figure 5, is drawn, and L2 is the length, grip to grip length of the specimen, because in tensile testing machine, this shape is being held between the jaws or grip of the tensile testing machine. So only this portion is available for analysis. Okay, and load is applied gradually. In tensile testing, load is always applied gradually. Now, I told you in previous slide about the elastic limit. So elastic limit is somewhere here between point A and B. This. Okay, so this is elastic limit here between point A and point B. Between point A and point B is the elastic limit. And about these points A, B, C, F, D, E, I'm going to discuss in the next slide. So remember this figure. Up to A, stress versus strain diagram is a straight line. And beyond A, there is elastic limit. So up to elastic limit, we have a straight line on the stress versus strain diagram. Okay, so A is the proportionality limit. A is called the proportionality limit. That is, up to point A, stress is proportional to strain. Up to point A, stress is proportional to strain. So this is called proportionality limit. Then beyond A, we have elastic limit. That is up to which the Hooke's law is applicable, which further means that if the material is unloaded at this point, it will regain its original shape. That is, up to elastic limit, the material is fully elastic. that is fully capable of restoring its original shape on removal of applied load. Then point B is the upper yield point. Point C is the lower yield point. Yield, Y-I-E-L-D, yield point. Okay, so there are two yield point for mild steel. One is upper yield point B, one is lower yield point C. Then we have ultimate tensile strength, point D, and E is the point of fracture. So all these points I'll discuss in detail in the next slide. So limit of proportionality A. It is the limiting value of stress up to which stress is proportional to strain. Okay. Then elastic limit. This is the limiting value of stress up to which, if the material is stressed and then released, strain disappears completely and the original length is regained. This point is slightly beyond the limit of proportionality. Then after elastic limit comes the upper yield point, point B. This is the stress at which the load starts reducing and the extension increases. This phenomena is called yielding of the material. So at upper yield point, load starts reducing and extension increases. See this. Upper yield point. We see that load has started decreasing. See, this has started decreasing, but strain is increasing. Although load has started decreasing, but strain is increasing. So this is called the yielding of the material. Okay. Then comes the point C, lower yield point. At this stage, the stress remains same, but strain increases for some time. Okay. Upper yield point, load starts reducing, but strain is increasing. So when this condition is achieved, load is reduced, extension is increasing. This is called the yielding of the material. And at lower yield point, point C, stress remains same, but strain increases for some time. See here. Here you see for slight portion of this diagram, you see stress is constant, but strain is increasing. So this is the lower yield point. Now ultimate stress. This is the maximum stress the material can resist. Okay. So when we apply load on any material, there is the capacity of that material, what maximum load it can take. So that is called the ultimate load. And if we talk based on per unit area, it is called ultimate stress. So maximum stress the material can resist. At this stage, cross-sectional area at a particular section starts reducing very fast. This is the maximum stress that the material can resist. And from this point onward, the cross-section area at a particular section starts reducing very fast. This reduction in area is called the neck formation, because in mild steel, see here, this failure will occur only after the formation of the neck. This is called neck, this shape. failure can't occur without the formation of neck in mild steel. So this is corresponding to point D, this point D on the stress strain curve. So this is called neck formation. After this stage, load resisted and hence the stress develop starts reducing. So once this ultimate tensile strength is reached, after that you see load resisted. Stress is decreasing means load resisted is being decreased. And as the stress developed starts reducing. Final E point is breaking point. The stress at which finally the specimen fails is called breaking point. E. At this stage, strain is 20 to 25%. So you see, from starting of the application of load to the failure of the specimen, the strain developed is only 20 to 25%. Okay, and this is mostly true for all ductile material. Nature of failure may be different, but the strain developed will be nearly equal to 20 to 25% for all ductile material. So these points you need to remember because they are crucial. There are questions asked in previous year GATE exams based on these points. So once again, I repeat, you don't have to leave anything by saying that, okay, I know this. There is nothing like that. They can ask questions from anywhere. So remember these points. Again, for the same figure, steel. If unloading is made within the elastic limit, the original length is regained. That is, stress strain curve follows the path OA in figure 5. So I'm talking about this figure again. OA. Okay. Elastic limit is somewhere here. If at this point load is removed, so material will regain its original shape and follow the path. This OA path, straight line. Okay, straight line. This one. If unloading is made after loading the specimen beyond elastic limit, okay, it follows a straight line FF dash parallel to the original straight line portion OA. So this F dash. If unloading is made beyond this elastic limit point, suppose in this region, okay, so when the load is removed, the body will not regain its original shape. Rather, the stress versus strain diagram will follow this behavior, this one, this behavior, which is parallel to OA, parallel to OA. Okay. Thus, if it is loaded beyond elastic limit and then unloaded, a permanent strain OF is left in the specimen. This is called permanent set. So this permanent set, any ductile material, be it steel, aluminium, or any ductile material, if they are unloaded beyond the elastic limit, at any point beyond the elastic limit, there will be a permanent set. That is, upon unloading, they will not follow the linear behavior that is followed for unloading within the elastic limit. So that permanent strain is called permanent set. So you see, I'm talking about figure 5 for mild steel, this one. So you see that this behavior here, permanent strain. This is permanent strain. Okay. Same thing for aluminium and high strength steel. You see, this is the permanent strain. This is the permanent strain. So this permanent strain will be there in ductile materials if they are unloaded beyond the elastic limit. Now, although steel, mild steel and aluminium and high strength steel, they are ductile materials, but stress versus strain diagram is different. The one which we have studied earlier for mild steel, that is a general diagram for ductile materials. Means whenever we say ductile material, the first diagram that comes into our mind is this one. This you must have studied in your +1 or +2 also. Okay, so this diagram is generally taught because this is the general behavior. But when we talk on the basis of specific materials, so for aluminium and high strength steel, we have this type of stress strain diagram. In these materials, there is no clear yield point. You see, here there are no yield points beyond the linear portion, or we say here. Okay. So up to this, there is a straight line. We can say that, okay, this is proportionality limit and elastic limit. But beyond this point, beyond elastic limit, we do not have yield points. So for aluminum and high strength steel, there are no yield points in the stress strain diagram, although they are ductile material. Necking takes place at ultimate stress. So this property is same as mild steel. This property is same because there also necking took place at ultimate stress. Here also it takes place at ultimate stress. Breaking point is lower than the ultimate point. Okay. Now, okay, breaking point is lower than the ultimate point. The stress Py at which if unloading is made, this stress. So beyond elastic limit, if unloading is made here at this point, there will be a permanent set, 0.2% permanent set. And this 0.2% permanent set in aluminium and high strength steel material is known as 0.2% proof stress. Okay, you must have heard this proof stress. What is proof stress in ductile material? So this is nothing but permanent strain that occurs during unloading in the plastic region beyond the elastic limit. Okay, so this is 0.2% proof stress. This is called 0.2% proof stress. And important thing to note here is because here there are no yield points. So this 0.2% proof stress is treated as yield point for all practical purposes. So this point is treated as yield point for all practical purposes. Okay. So indirectly we have a yield point that is assumed as this point. Okay. Now we talked about ductile materials. Now we study the brittle material like cast iron. Cast iron is brittle material. So for brittle material, cast iron example, stress strain curve is totally different from ductile material. Okay. change in rate of strain is negligible in brittle materials, because if the load is applied, they will fail without being deformed. Okay, so change in rate of strain is negligible. There is no yield point, as you can see, no necking. Okay, there is no necking, because for necking, this behavior has to be something like this. Okay, so which is not the case, which is not there. So if we consider only up to this point, okay, if we are considering only up to this, so we see that there is no ultimate tensile strength point, so there will be no necking. Ultimate point and breaking point are one and the same. So this point, ultimate point and the breaking point are the same. For ductile material, for brittle material, sorry, for brittle material. So you need to remember these properties, because in GATE, when they ask 1 mark question, in that they ask some theoretical questions as well. So in those theoretical questions, they can ask these properties. Okay, so now you have studied the stress strain diagram for ductile material, mild steel, aluminum and high strength steel, and brittle material, example cast iron. Next we come to the question. This question is from GATE 2014. Again, I am warning you, don't take things lightly, because this is GATE 2014 is the one from which the online system of GATE started. So can be considered recent paper. What they have asked, the stress strain curve for mild steel. See, they have mentioned mild steel is shown in the figure below. Choose the correct option referring to both figure and table. Okay, here they have given the figure, here they have given the table. Now they have mentioned the point P, Q, R, S, T, U, and they have mentioned mild steel. So this you can easily solve. I'll discuss the answer in detail when the regular coaching starts. Okay, but this is simple. You can solve it on your own based on what I have taught you. Okay, see the question carefully. You will be able to solve it. And you can solve it. Again, GATE 2017, more recent one. In the engineering stress strain curve for mild steel, you have to look for the words, what is being asked. Okay, so again, mild steel. The ultimate tensile stress refers to. I told you about the ultimate tensile stress point on the stress strain diagram for mild steel. Based on that, you must be able to solve this question. Very simple. So what I'm trying to say is, whatever is being mentioned in the syllabus of GATE, whatever topic is mentioned there, you must know each and everything about that topic. Okay, see again 2021, this year itself, they have asked this question based on stress strain diagram. The loading and unloading response of a metal is shown in the figure, the elastic and plastic strains. I told you elastic limit and plastic limit. And if you are not clear, again let me tell you, elastic limit is the point up to which if the load is removed, the body will regain its original shape. Okay, so that is elastic limit. That is slightly beyond the, this elastic limit point is slightly beyond the proportionality limit point. Okay, beyond elastic limit, the entire region is plastic region. That is yield point, upper yield point, lower yield point, ultimate tensile stress point, and breaking point. They all come in the plastic region. So the question says the elastic and plastic strains corresponding to 200 megapascal stress are. This is given stress, this is strain. Okay. This also I'll discuss in, because this is a type of a demo lecture. So I'm not discussing these questions right now, but I have put these questions for your information so that you get the idea that you don't have to leave anything from the syllabus. Questions can be very simple, but sometimes you are not able to recall them during the examination. So you have to have the idea of each and everything that is mentioned in the syllabus. So this also you can practice for yourself, and I will discuss these questions during the regular coaching as and when it starts. Okay, so you have to solve this question. Remember, whatever I have taught in the previous slides, based on that only you will be able to solve the question. You don't have to study anything else from anywhere. Based on that only you will be able to answer this question. Okay, simply apply your mind, apply your concept, and you will get the answer. Now, till now we talked about stress versus strain behavior of for materials in tension. Now, materials also undergo deformation when they are applied compressive stresses. When a compressive load is applied, material go under deformation. So again here, for ductile materials, the stress versus strain curve follows exactly the same path as in the tensile test, up to and even slightly beyond the yield point. So remember this thing, in tension and compression both, up to the yield point, stress versus strain behavior will be same or even slightly beyond it. So what was the behavior for tensile material? This is the rough diagram I'm drawing so that you get the idea. Okay, this, then this, and then this. Okay, so up to the yield point. Yield point. So where were the yield points? One yield point here and one here. So up to this point. The behavior in compression as well as tension is same for ductile materials. Remember, for ductile materials. But as the value increases, the curves will be different for compression and tension. For large values, the curves diverge. Okay. So this is up to the yield point. Up to yield point, behavior will be same in compression and tension. But beyond the yield point, the behavior for compression and tension will be different. There will be no necking in case of compression test. Okay. In tension test, where did the necking started? Here at ultimate tensile stress, UTS. For tensile test, necking begin here at maximum stress. But in case of compression test, no necking, even in case of ductile material. Now, when it comes to brittle materials, ultimate compressive stress in compression is much larger than in tension. And remember, this is the most important property of cast iron. This question you will find everywhere, whether it is UPSC engineering services examination, or SSC JE or RRB JE. This is the most interesting property of cast iron. The question will be, why cast iron is used under compressive load than under tensile load? Because ultimate compressive stress in compression is much larger than in tension. Means it can take much larger load under compression than in tension. So this is one of the most important property of brittle material, and in particular cast iron. And why does this happen? Compressive stress is much higher. Compressive strength is much higher than tensile strength because of flaws and cracks present in brittle material, which weaken the material in tension but will not affect the strength in compression. So there are flaws and cracks present in the brittle materials. Okay, because why so? Because during heat treatment, that is altogether a different topic that I'll cover in section 4 engineering materials. But to give you some idea, flaws and cracks are present because the material is brittle when there is sudden cooling of the material. So grains are not able to properly grow as they have less time to attain larger size. So the material becomes brittle. And since the cooling process is very fast, there will be flaws and cracks present in the brittle materials. So due to this, the tensile strength decreases, but it will not affect the strength in compression. So this is related to microstructure of the material, brittle materials. But you have to remember this. These are two very important points for brittle material, and these two properties make them suitable for use where large compressive stresses are required. Okay, so this you have to remember for brittle material, for these materials. Now, factor of safety. This term you must have heard, and this term is used throughout this section. Whatever subject we will study, be it machine design or this mechanics of materials. Okay, so in these subjects, this is a common term which will be used time and again. So what is factor of safety? The maximum stress to which any member is designed is much less than the ultimate stress, and this stress is called working stress. What is working stress? There are two things for every material: maximum stress, that it can take, and working stress for which it is designed. So maximum stress is the maximum stress which a material can bear. Okay, and working stress is for which the material is designed, and this working stress is always less than the maximum stress. Working stress is always less than the maximum or ultimate stress. Okay, so the ratio of ultimate stress to the working stress is called factor of safety. You can conclude from this word also, factor of safety. That is, we are designing the material to be on the safer side. Okay. So factor of safety is ratio of ultimate stress to the working stress. So ultimate stress is always greater than working stress. So factor of safety will always be greater than or equal to 1. If the working stress is equal to ultimate stress, which is never a case. Working stress is always less than ultimate stress. So it will be greater than or equal to 1. And in almost all cases, this is greater than 1 because ultimate stress is always greater than the working stress. Now, in case of elastic materials, since excessive deformation create problems in the performance of the member, working stress is taken as a factor of yield stress or that of 0.2 proof stress. This I discussed earlier, 0.2 proof stress. When we discussed the stress strain diagram for aluminum and high strength steel, there I mentioned this 0.2 proof stress. And see the condition also, if the yield point does not exist. So this yield point did not exist in case of aluminum and high strength steel. Okay, but for if we talk about mild steel, then there is a yield point. So based on that, we will take yield stress as the working stress. Remember this. You have to remember this is the basic theory behind what we are studying. Okay, so working stress for mild steel, or in general, if we say for materials which have yield point in their stress versus strain diagram. So for them, working stress is yield stress. Okay, and in materials in which there is no yield point, for those materials, 0.2% proof stress is the working stress. Okay. Why we consider factor of safety? Because the load bearing capacity of material is different, and different in the sense it can vary because of the presence of various defects, flaws, cracks, and many other defects. That is why we consider factor of safety while designing the materials. Okay, so that the material is not designed for ultimate stress, rather it is designed for working stress, so that the material does not fail suddenly. Okay, next. Till now, we did not discuss about the effect of temperature on stresses. We were simply talking about the basic concept of stress and strain. Now, due to temperature also, there will be stresses, there will be strain. Now, as we see here, this diagram, a member which is fixed at point A and free at point B, having length L. Okay. This end it is free, at point B it is free. So when it will be heated, it's free expansion. Since it is free at this end, so the expansion that will occur will be L alpha delta T. Expansion means change in length, strain. Okay. So since here the strain is due to temperature, so we call it temperature strain. So this strain will be L alpha delta T. T is the temperature rise, means delta T. I have written here T as per the book language, but this is T means change in temperature, rise in temperature, increase or decrease, change in temperature. So this is L alpha T. Alpha is the coefficient of thermal expansion. Higher the coefficient of thermal expansion of the material, higher will be its expansion in response to temperature increase. Okay, so free expansion of the member is L alpha delta T. And one of the most important point that you need to remember is this one. When a member is free to expand or contract, means when this end is free, there is no preventing of expansion or contraction of the material. When a member is free to expand or contract, okay, due to change in temperature, no stresses will be induced in the member. Remember, because the material is free here, okay, so there will be no stresses induced in the material. Simply there will be strain because there will be a change in length. This one. L alpha. Now we say that a compressive load is applied at free end of this member. Okay. Uh, without any load, the material expanded by L alpha T. Now a load is applied, means this expansion is being prevented now. This will not expand. This expansion is being prevented. Let an external load P is applied at B so that, sorry, I have written it by mistake here. Rod. This rod is decreased in its length from L alpha delta T to L plus L alpha T to L. Means when the load is applied, the length is again decreased back to L due to the application of this load. Okay. Same as the original one, this one. So due to the application of this load, the length is again changed to L. Okay. Let A be the cross-sectional area of the rod. So compressive stress due to this load will be P by A. That is simple. Stress is load upon area. Okay. Now strain. What will be the strain? Change in length upon original length. Okay. L alpha delta T upon L plus L alpha T. L alpha T upon L plus L alpha T. Why here? Because change in length is this much. L alpha T. Okay. Due to the application of this load, change in length is L alpha T. And original length was L plus this one. So original length is L plus L alpha T. Since L alpha T is small compared to L, so we neglect this part and cancel out this L. So this will come out strain as alpha into T. Okay. So we know from earlier knowledge that stress upon strain is Young's modulus of plasticity E. So stress is sigma, strain is alpha T. Okay. When the rod is prevented from expanding, what I discussed here, if the expansion is free, expansion or contraction is free, no stresses will be developed. Okay. No stresses will be developed. But when the expansion is prevented by the application of this load P, expansion is prevented by the application of this load P, a temperature stress will be developed, and that will be equal to alpha TE from this relation. Sigma is alpha TE. And what will be the load? thrust alpha TE into A, area of cross section. Okay, same as sigma is P upon A. So this. Now, when this is expansion or contraction is prevented due to the application of load. Okay, when expansion or contraction is prevented due to the application of this load P, temperature strain becomes expansion or contraction prevented. That is the change in length only. Expansion or contraction prevented. Why this? Because see here, free expansion was this much. Okay, L alpha T. But due to the application of this load, this free expansion is prevented. Okay, this free expansion is prevented in the final case. Okay, in final case there is no L alpha T, only L is there. Okay, so this is expansion prevented. So for example, consider, suppose a rod of length L, when subjected to a rise of temperature, is permitted to expand only by delta. The temperature strain E is, I'll explain this by drawing this figure. Let me see if I have, no, I don't have. So see. Okay, this is length L. What will be the free expansion here? Suppose this much is the free expansion, that is when there is no any externally applied load. So this is the free expansion. L alpha T. Okay, this is the free expansion. This is L alpha T. Now, when the load is applied, okay, let me draw this. When this load is applied, this is again L. L. Okay. Now see carefully. Carefully observe what I'm doing. This was the free expansion when there was no load applied. This one. Okay. Now, when this load is applied, this was the free expansion L alpha T. But due to this application of load, the expansion has been prevented and material is permitted to expand only by delta. That is, this is delta. So free expansion was to be this much or this much, but actual expansion is this. due to application of this lower P. Okay, so how much expansion has been prevented? This much. This much expansion has been prevented. So what is the value of this expansion prevented here? This is L alpha P minus delta. Am I right? L alpha T minus delta. So this much is the expansion prevented, and original length was L. So when the expansion is prevented, expansion or contraction is prevented by the application of external load and rise or fall in temperature. The temperature strain will be expansion prevented upon original length L alpha T minus delta upon L, and temperature stress will be E into E. See, again in GATE 2014, they have asked these two questions. A circular rod of length L and area of cross section A has the modulus of elasticity E and coefficient of thermal expansion alpha. One end of the rod is fixed and other end is free. If the temperature of the rod is increased by delta T, then these four options are given. I have clearly explained you this question. And this also, both these questions I have clearly explained you. You must be able to solve this. Okay. And as I said earlier, I'm going to discuss when I take the regular classes. Now, so the demo lecture is complete. I have covered the stress and strain topic that is relevant to this mechanics of materials subject. We will also be dealing with stress and strain in while studying machine design and engineering materials. So there also I'll take up stress and strain in detail, but that portion will be slightly different from this one. This is the most general. These are the most general concepts of stress and strain. Okay. The concepts which we will be studying in machine design and engineering materials, they will be slightly different from this, and they will be applicable to slightly different materials. Materials will change there. So this is the basic of stress and strain. When I take the regular classes, I'll further extend these concepts in the next sections which are mentioned in the syllabus, next topics like Poisson ratio, elastic constants. So next 2-3 topics